Mike Shay. Welcome back to another episode of the Second Half Podcast. I'm your host, Jabari Saunders, bringing you another great episode here on the Second Half. Before we get started, hit that like, follow, and subscribe. Be sure to check out our merch store. We got some great merch for you guys to check out. I promise you it's your favorite hoodie's favorite hoodie. No lie, no cap, none of that. But without further ado, I have none other than Barry Queen jumping on the podcast. He's a former athlete, HBCU at that, but also he is the president and founder of Position Planning and Financial Group, where he works with sports and entertainers. In a day and age of NIL and so much money flying out the way, this is an important conversation for so many. So glad to have you, Barry. Appreciate you jumping on the podcast, man.
Thank you, brother. Thank you for having me, man. I feel blessed to be here with you, man. So thank you.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. You know, it's funny when you have someone who crosses paths, who has just great energy, solid foundation, and of course, just having that understanding and connection as related to sports and honestly just entrepreneurship in itself. So, you know, it was great to just kind of connect with you, and I'm glad to even have you on here. So let's go ahead and get started, man. Let's start from the jump. Like, where did the story of Barry Queen start? Where you from?
I'm from Philly, man.
Okay.
Born and raised, Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. Whole
Yeah.
family is from Philly, man. All I ever really knew was Philly growing up. I ended up leaving Philly at 17, but
Okay.
born and raised, so I'm a diehard Eagles fan. Philly,
Okay.
Sixers.
Of course, y'all balling right now.
Diehard. You know, Philly fans a little rough, man. So leaving Philly and eventually living in other states, you know, that energy has always carried me along. But yeah, man, diehard, born and raised Philly.
Love it. Philly. I got to stop there real quick. What's your go-to Philly cheesesteak spot? We were just out there not too long ago. I hit up, Ishkabibbles or something like that. Like, what's your go-to?
So, Delisandro's. So
okay.
Ishkabibbles gets a lot of attention,
Okay.
and then you've got the staple Pats and Geno's. Don't go there though. I mean, no disrespect, but I'm a guy. I like Delisandro's. You're just not gonna miss with that cheesesteak. It's a quality cheesesteak. You're not gonna miss.
Oh, good. I'm gonna definitely hit that on the list next time I'm back out that way for sure. Well, man. All right. So start. You grew up there in Philly. How did you get around the sports and kind of that direction and knowing that you wanted to be in athletics?
My dad, man. My dad got me in sports. So my dad won a state championship in Philly back in the day. Went to Abington High School. Okay. He played with a lot of guys. He was a very well-known guy. And he would literally have me at the gym with him. So Saturday mornings, they're running pickup. A 5-on-5. I'm watching, my old heads, going at each other. Yep. And my dad was a competitor, just super competitor. And he created that hunger in me because I just wanted his respect. I wanted his attention. And, he had that dog in him. And it was, for me, it was like I was hooked because of my dad. It was my dad.
He was the one. You hear so much about Philly basketball, of course, being here in Chicago. You grow up going to the open gyms. Like, what were some of those iconic gyms and places that you remember of going up to? It was like, man, this is where the best runs were at.
Yeah, so Belfield, back in the day, anybody knows about that. Belfield gym, great runs. Mallory, even McGonigal Hall, this is like North Philly, huge, great runs at that time. Hard Tramp, Central. You can go to Central and play, Central High School, and get some runs in. I mean, there's just a lot of different areas. Even playgrounds. I grew up in Mount Airy. Finley Playground I spent a lot of time up there. But even going to different parts of Philly, going to South Philly and playing, going to West Philly and playing, because when you grow up in a certain part of town and then you go to another part of town to play, it's a different experience. People are not familiar with your game, they don't know you, so you gotta earn your keep.
Absolutely. And of course, a part of earning your keep, you obviously you were able to thrive and be successful yourself playing the game, right? Tell me a little bit about that. Did you play like AAU ball and what your journey into before you end up getting to college?
Man, my journey, I kind of feel like, have you ever seen the movie Rudy?
Yep, yep.
I
Actually, it's
was,
funny. Rudy is actually where I grew up out in Joliet, Illinois. He's one of the guys. He grew up out that way. So before he
okay.
went to Notre Dame, so very familiar with the story.
I feel like I was Rudy,
Yeah.
honestly. So
Okay.
I feel like, you know, I always feel like I never kind of hit my stride
Yep.
because there was always a lot of things going on in the background that just prevented me from being able to really hit my stride the way I wanted to. My dad, like I said, was how I got connected to sports. And my dad loved me, but he suffered with mental health issues, alcoholism, and eventually substance abuse. So what happened was there was kind of a period of time where it was just me and him, and we didn't, I didn't grow up with my father in the house. My mother and my father were divorced, but I would go with him on the weekends, and
Cool.
he had me in leagues, and I was balling, I was playing. And then, when I was probably about 11 or 12 years old, um, things just changed dramatically, and what happened during that period of time is that a lot of the leagues and the things that I was involved with, it was left to either my mother to figure that stuff out, or me, or some mentor to help me figure out how to get in here and get there. Money was tight. So, you don't really, like, I'm a kid, I don't really know how to navigate some of these things.
Yeah.
And mom doesn't have money, and so paying for this and paying for that, that's a difficult conversation to have. So what happened was there was a lot of opportunities that I just couldn't go and play because we didn't have the money, and what did happen though is my mother put me in a private school. To make a long story short, there was a lot of rough experiences I had with my dad.
Yeah.
And a lot of those experiences happened with just he and I, and I started acting out. I'm going on the weekends with my dad, and my dad is spazzing out, and
Yeah.
guns being drawn, and life or death type situations happening.
Wow.
And then I go home to my mom, and no, I'm not talking about what's going on. And I started getting in trouble, and I ended up getting expelled from 3 schools
Oh, wow.
before I was in the 7th grade. And so my mother ended up put me in another school in the area, and I got stabbed. I was in the 7th grade. I got stabbed in school, and it was just rough. And then she was like, "Look, we got to figure something out." So she put me in this private school, this small private school. I'm going to school, white people for the first time. I mean, that with all due respect, like I you know what I'm saying? Like I have not
Your
grown
culture
up in
wasn't
that.
there.
Yeah, my culture wasn't there, right? So
Yeah.
I'm going to school with, people that I'm not used to being around,
Yeah.
and it changed my whole life. And that's the school that I went to until I graduated from high school. And unfortunately, fortunately, it changed my life. My relationship with God came from that experience. But I did not get a lot of exposure playing in that school because it was not very well known. So I put up, pretty strong numbers. I mean, I was ranked in the top 20 in the state of Pennsylvania my senior year in scoring. I was putting up a lot of numbers. I played against a lot of big schools, but I didn't get a lot of scouts coming to my games and things of that nature. And I played Sunny Hill League. That's a league that's very well known. And
Very well known.
John Hartnett was my coach. Very well known guy. I played with some really really good guys that were pretty well known in Philly. But it ended up, I ended up graduating from high school, not getting the kind of looks that I wanted.
Yeah.
I got a lot of D2 looks, but I felt like I
Okay.
was a D1 player.
Right.
And so I decided that, I was going to go the route of a walk on. And that's what I ended
That's
up
what I'm
doing.
doing. I
Yeah.
got you. I mean, there's so many. You talk about Sunny Hill, and I definitely want to go back into some other things you actually just spoke on. But one of those things that's top of mind is like you talk about Sunny Hill playing in that league. Who were some of the players that you even in high school that were just like at that elite level that you were also playing with at that time?
So high school, I played against like Sean Singletary,
Yep.
uh, Kyle Lowry. There was a guy named Mark Tyndall who played at Temple, who's a great player. Deontay Christmas, Scott Rogers. Um, I played against. Did I mention? I think I mentioned Sean Singletary. Did I mention
Yes.
him?
Yes. Yes.
Okay, I
Yes.
did. Yeah,
Yeah.
played at University of Virginia.
Yeah.
And then there was a handful of guys that I played against that, and I'm sure you have the same story where it's like, um, man, this guy was an incredible player. He just had other issues going on, so
Yeah.
he
Oh,
never
absolutely.
he never saw the light of day. But great player, just had
Just yeah.
a lot of issues, a lot of things
Issues.
was going
Yeah.
on, right?
Yeah.
But it's funny. I wrote a letter to Jay to the coach over at Villanova.
Oh, Jay
What's his
Wright.
name? Jay Wright. So I wrote a letter to Jay Wright, and I told him, I was like, look, I'm trying to play college basketball, and I'm not heavily recruited. I feel like I have something to offer, and I would love an opportunity to get to play on your team. And so he responded to me, and he didn't have to do that.
Absolutely
And
not.
he basically said, look, we've got a pretty strong lineup of guards coming in.
Oh man,
And
it's tough guards.
and look, Randy Foye. They had Randy
Yeah.
Foye. They had Kyle Lowry, right?
Yeah.
I mean, they were
had tough
stacked,
guards.
right? DiVincenzo, all these guys were just lined up.
Yep.
So that didn't work out. But I appreciated that he responded to me, right? He was like,
Yeah,
look,
yeah.
We're stacked. But I ended up going a different path. But yeah, man,
Yeah.
I really appreciate, even to this day, that guy is probably one of the most professional, like through and through. Like I can't say anything bad about him, because I was just a young nobody. He didn't even have to
Yeah.
respond. He took his time to give me a very detailed response and even encourage me, and I really appreciate that.
Yeah. It's something about just having those people who are in leadership positions, whether they're coaches or coworkers or whatever it is, just having that type of respect and responsibility to say, I'm going to take the time and actually respond to this. I know I don't have anything for them, but I know at the least I can do is handwrite this letter to them or type it up and just respond to them in a simple manner. And you don't even realize how far that goes. And like you said, that's lasted, 10, 15 years down the road, and it's still, top of mind of a story, which I love that. It's something so far. And I've heard nothing but great things about Coach Jay Wright, being out there
Yeah.
in Villanova. For sure.
Yeah.
No, that's
Yeah.
awesome that you were able to put that letter out there though. That's crazy.
Yeah, I always, this is the thing, my hunger and my desire many times was the difference, not necessarily my talent. I think that I've always been a worker. I've always been a person that, like, don't tell me what I can't do,
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah.
And that that did a lot for me,
Yeah.
I mean, I'm 6'1", maybe. Not the most. I mean, I'm athletic, but I'm not I'm not jumping out the gym on you. I'm not doing any of that. I was a pretty good shooter, a good defender, but I outworked people.
Yeah.
And that's what got me that's what got me an opportunity, is that I outwork people, you know?
It's the little things that take you to that next level and to provide you where people think that, oh, I need to go out and go score 40 and 35 and 50. And it's like, actually, no. What I just need you to do is work hard. And those are the
Yeah.
ones who have the best longevity in their careers. So, but no, I want to go back because something that you spoke on, right? You dealt with some challenges growing up with your dad and the balance between back and forth and how you were kind of showing out. Kind of speak a little bit about how that challenge, because you went from several different cultures and energy changes during that time. Like, tell me how that kind of set you up even before you even went on to college.
Yeah, so man, my journey through my like adolescence was trying to make sense of like pure chaos,
Yeah.
like in every way. My mother loved me, but she was angry all the time. Wasn't affectionate towards me, you know, was just upset that she was stuck, and we're in this 400 square foot, one bedroom apartment. I don't have my own room. I gotta sleep. I'm sleeping in the bed with my mom till I'm 11, and then I'm like, this is weird.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
can't do that, and so I'm gonna sleep on the floor, Mom. I can't do that. Like I'm uncomfortable. And my mom's like, "What's wrong?" And I'm like, "Nah, I can't do that." Like
Yeah.
this is not. I'm becoming a man. Like I don't feel comfortable because we're just trying to survive in this little
Yeah.
small space. You
Yeah.
know, and my dad, who is like my hero, I can never I'm never enough. You know what I mean? Like I'm not enough. And I kind of got it on both sides. And it was really difficult for me because I spent so much time trying to make sense of things that I couldn't make sense of.
Yeah.
And, I would say my father was my first client. And what I mean by that is I watched him very closely and his energy and how he navigated life to try to make sense of why is he this way?
Yeah.
Why why don't we have any money? Why you know what I mean? Why are you erratic in your terms of your personality? Why do you make commitments and not follow through?
Yeah.
All these different things, right? And I didn't really have anybody to comfort me, through all of that. So when my mother, out of just pure I'm going to make sure my child makes it,
Yep.
puts me in this school, I don't think she had no idea the impact that had, because I got into an ecosystem and an environment where I experienced love in a way that I had never experienced it before. My teachers, my classmates, I never experienced that kind of love,
Yeah.
and it changed me. It
Yep.
completely changed me in a way that, I mean, honestly, the road I was headed on is I was either gonna hurt somebody or somebody's gonna hurt me. You know what I mean? I'm gonna be honest with you.
Yeah.
I just so aggressive behavior was modeled to me. Violence. So I only knew how to communicate really in one way, because that
One
was
way.
kind of
Yeah.
what was taught. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So using your words, feeling things and actually being able to tap into I'm hurt or I'm sad, or
Emotional
these are,
intelligence. Yeah.
yeah, I didn't these are different
We don't necessarily grow
experiences.
up with that all the time.
Yeah, so it was just different, man. It was
Yeah.
crying, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
All of that, you know what I mean? It was just
You don't have that, especially coming from Philly. It's like you can't have time to cry. Like you a man, like a young man at that. You got to grow up fast, quick.
yeah, man. So it saved my life, man.
Yeah.
It saved my life, man. I just and it's contributed so much to my development and how I look at life as a man, because I've had so many people from different walks of life be a blessing to me. And it's caused me to be very open.
Yep.
I was very closed-minded, and I think I grew up in an environment where I was taught to be closed off operating from a place of fear.
Yep.
And the more open I became in exploring other points of view and really seeing the life through other people's eyes, it helped me have more empathy for people and have more for myself, So that was kind of my experience.
Yeah, for sure. So tell me this. Of course, you're dealing with all these experiences. Of course, like you're top 20 in the state. You're wanting to play at a high Division I level. Of course, you're being looked at. But like you said, you went a different route. Tell me a bit about that experience and who were those other schools that you were looking at to potentially walk on to outside of Villanova, which is right there in the backyard.
I looked at this is what I'm gonna say is horrible, but it's the truth.
Hey,
I went to my guidance. So this is the thing. My grandmother, my mother's mother, so growing up in Philly, I remember a grandfather who never really talked about where he was from, and a grandmother with a Southern accent, thick Southern accent.
Okay.
So she always talked about being from Virginia and, living in the country in Virginia and all this stuff, right? So we went to a family reunion probably about a year before I graduated from high school, and it was in the sticks of Virginia, like South Boston. Like, this is, if anyone's been to South Boston, this is country, right? And I got a chance to meet a side of the family I'd never met before and experience a way of life I'd never experienced. So I literally said to myself, I want to go to school not too close to home because I don't want my mom just be able to pop up on me, right? But not too far where I can't get home. So I ended up deciding on going to school in Virginia. I said I want to go to school in Virginia because I got some family there. And I literally then said I want to go to an HBCU because I went to a diverse high school, and I was like, I want that experience of an HBCU. I heard about HBCUs. I didn't know about fraternities. I didn't know about any of that stuff. I just knew I wanted to go to HBCU. And let me tell you what I did. I went online and I looked up HBCUs in Virginia. Then I looked up I looked up their basketball teams, and I picked Norfolk State because they had two graduating seniors playing guard.
Playing guards. You're like, I got
So I was like, that was literally how I made my decision. I was like,
wow.
Okay, I'm gonna go there. And
wow.
I that's how I picked the school that I went to. I didn't look at their academic program. I didn't visit. I didn't do anything. Let me tell you,
this is what the dorms look like. You just.
I had never been there. Nothing.
Wow.
That's all I did.
Wow.
That's all I did. And I was like, I'm gonna go there. And it's so interesting that I ended up the first day I showed up on the campus. My dad dropped me off, and I dropped my bags off, and I went straight to the coach's office. He's never heard from me, never seen me.
Didn't know anything.
I didn't unpack my stuff or nothing. I said, my name is Barry Queen, and I'm going to make your team. I was 17 years old because my birthday's in October, so I got there August of 2004. And I said, my name is Barry Queen, and I'm going to make your team. And this 6'8" guy looked at me, and he was like, what? Like
who
what are you talking about? Right? And I proceeded to essentially be Rudy. Essentially. Yeah. When I say I literally did everything. I was that guy. I'm the guy that's getting off the track when the team's getting on the track. I'm like, you guys work out at 7, I work out at 5. Whatever you can think of, I was that guy.
Yeah.
And there's more to the story, but yeah, that's how I picked Norfolk State.
That's how you got it. Wow. I mean, that's incredible. A lot of people they do not want to put that type of work in. You know, when I hear
Yeah.
kids today, they're like, "Well, no, I'm deserving of going in." As you said, you were deserving. You could have chosen any other school, could have gone D2 and still played for a coach who knew who you were to start off there. But yet you were able to change and figure it out and say, "I'm just going to grind it." And it seems like that's the theme of your kind of journey of like, no, I just get in here and grind out and work hard anyway. So that's what I do.
You know, the way my mind works, and it's always worked, is what's the worst that can happen? I've suffered so much in my life that like you really can't hurt me. You know, like
Yeah.
you like, all right, I lose it all. I didn't really start with much. So
Yep.
okay.
You know what that is, and you've been able to live and
I'm
thrive
not
and figure it
afraid.
out.
You
Yeah,
can't
yeah,
really, you know, you okay. Let's go.
for sure. Absolutely. So you find yourself in Virginia. Yeah, you chose Norfolk State. I mean, right now they're all in the media. Of course, Mike Vick becoming the head
Yeah.
coach, which is amazing, and
Yep.
just having that energy. But you get to Norfolk State, Virginia. You've never been to the campus, so you get on campus. What was that experience like? You know, like you said, you're grinding. You're in there every day, 5 in the morning, weight room. You know, you're doing every bit that you possibly can to make a team. Like, what's that experience? Because I know there's also that kind of cultural difference being at an HBCU as well.
It was it was a beautiful struggle. Um Man, there were so many highs and lows. The highs of like I'm here, you know, like you know what I mean, people I grew up with that were had been murdered, you know what I mean? Like it's like I'm here, like I made it here. I got out of Philadelphia, you know? But then it's like, oh my God, but I have so much further to go. You know what I mean? Like and I'm here and I don't have any support, you know? And I've got to figure all this out and trying to figure out how to navigate that was just so much. But at the same time, I'm excited because I'm meeting people from all different walks of life, people from different parts of the country. I've never met a person from DC. I've never met a person from Chicago. You know, I never met people, and I'm learning about their culture and what the music they like to listen to and what food they like and how they wear their clothes and all of that, right? And I'm enjoying that experience, right? But at the same time, my primary reason for coming to Norfolk State was to play ball, and I'm
Yep.
on this journey to try to make this team. And there's so many things that happen,
Yeah.
and I could share some of those things with you. But
Yeah.
there's
No,
some
go ahead.
really crazy things that happen. So to make a long story short, October 22nd of 2004, after doing all the stuff I did to kind of be on the coach's radar and all that stuff, working out the team, all that stuff, trials come. And I show up to try out, and they read off the list of players that are eligible. And my name's not on the list. So I'm like, hold
What's
up.
going on? Yeah.
What's going on? I've been coming here every day. You know what I mean? Like, they're like, oh, did you do your NCAA clearinghouse form?
Clearinghouse. Wow. Of course not. No
I'm
one
like,
told you
I've
you
not,
didn't
I'm
do
like,
that.
I don't even know what that is.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
They're like, I'm sorry, you cannot try out.
Wow.
So I didn't know what I was going to do because my goal was to walk on, earn a scholarship, money's tight. I didn't even know how I'm going to get through the first semester.
Yeah.
So I get deregistered from class, and basically I'm like, I don't know what I'm gonna do. I call my mom. My mom's crying. I don't know what I can't help you. My dad,
Yep.
MIA. So I'm in financial aid, crying, begging. I'm like, look,
Yeah.
I'm like, whatever you can help, like anything you can do, like anything. So I ended up being able to get like some type of aid that would help me get through the first semester.
Okay.
And then basically I had to figure out how to get through the second semester because I knew it wasn't going to be a walk on. So second semester comes, but before that I go home for winter break and I had no plan, and financial aid was like, look, we don't have anything for you.
Yeah.
So I went home and I was like, man, I guess I'm not going to be able to come back. You know what I mean? Because I'm like, I don't have the money. And I just so ironically ended up seeing a guy that I grew up with. When I told you I got stabbed in the 7th grade, well, my friend Danny was in that classroom with me and was kind of part of the reason why I got stabbed. It is a long story. But my friend, right, who I played, basketball with, we grew up together, went to elementary, middle school together. I see him and I'm like, yo, what's up, man? And he's like, what's going on, man? I hadn't seen him in years. And he was playing football at Millersville at a D2 school. He went to Martin Luther King. He was a very popular guy. And he's like, man, let's hang out. So I'm like, dope, let's hang out. So it's a Friday. We hang out. And, we ended up deciding to go somewhere. And there's a couple other people. And, man, it was great just to catch up with a childhood friend. And we ended up going back to his house and just a friend's house, and just staying up all night talking for like 2 hours. And honestly, I ended up doing most of the talking because I was going through so much, and I just started like venting, talking about my dad, everything. And he just listened, man, and like was just telling me stuff that he had going on, but not too much.
Yeah.
Anyways, I leave. Saturday goes by, no conversation. Sunday. Monday, I get a phone call, and my friend calls me and says, man, Danny died, man. And I'm like, he died? I'm like, what are you talking about? He's like, man, he shot himself in the head. Wow. And I was one of the last person he ever spoke to. And so I ended up having to go to his funeral that week. And after having that experience, I don't know what came over me, but I was like, I got to go back to school and I got to try. I had no plan. I had no money. And so I went to school and got deregistered, got an $8,000 bill that I had to come up with the money for in a matter of days.
Yep.
I'm praying, I'm crying. I don't know what to do. My mom can't help me. And out of nowhere, my mother's mother, calls me, and she's like, Barry, I really love you and I respect what you're doing. And, I don't have a lot of money, but when your grandfather died, he left me just a little bit of money and I think it was from a life insurance policy.
Okay. And
she gave me enough money to pay my tuition for my second semester.
Oh, wow.
And I got through my second semester from a little bit of money. And my grandfather passed away. He was like my dad. He died in 1998 traumatically of prostate cancer. And we're a day apart. His birthday is October 25th. Mine's 24th. And it's just incredible that little bit of money he left was the difference. It got me through my second semester. And I was able to stay in school. And that's how I stayed in school my second semester. Yeah. So I stay in school my second semester, and I'm like, all right, God, like, all right, we're good. I go home to Philly, and I'm like, I'm going to get in the best shape of my life. Yep. And I'm going to come back a machine, and I'm going to make this team. So I go home, and I've always been an entrepreneur in terms at heart, like my mindset. Yep. And there was a guy I had met back in high school who was talking to me about getting involved in building some kind of business. It turns out it was network marketing, but I didn't know what it was. I was a kid, right? So anyways, when I'm home, he's like, yo, you're going to be back in Philly? He's like, man, come to a meeting with me. So I go to a meeting with him, and I'm in this meeting, Jabari, and I'm I'm in exceptional shape, right? No
Yeah.
medical issues, no nothing. I'm in this meeting, some guy's doing a presentation, and all of a sudden, I lose all the taste in my mouth, right? Like, then my heart starts beating faster than I have ever experienced in my life. I'm talking about like boom, 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 boom. And I'm just sitting down. Then I feel like I'm no longer like able to breathe. Like I'm not breathing well. And then I'm like about to like pass out. Like it's about to be over, right?
Yeah.
So I'm tapping this guy next to me, and I'm like, help. I'm like, I need to get out of here. I need to go to the hospital. Something's wrong. I feel like I'm about to have a heart attack. So he picks me up and like quietly escorts me out the room. And he puts me in a car, and I literally feel my chest caving in like I am about to die.
Yeah.
I get my mom on the phone, and I'm crying, and I'm like, Mom, I love you, but I don't know if this is like it, right?
Yeah.
My mom's going off, right? What? Blah, blah, blah. So it's 30 minutes to the closest hospital. Jeez. I'm in and out of consciousness, and I'm just saying over and over again, I can do all things through Christ. God, please keep me alive. Like fighting. I'm going in and out. He's praying over me. I'm crying. I'm going in and out. I'm thinking it's over. So it get me to and what happened was, thank God, he flagged down a police officer who essentially gave us a path, cleared the path for us to get. Yeah, so we get to the hospital. I rush in there, and I'm still kind of in and out. And they're like, sir, can you take a seat? And I'm like, sir, I need a doctor right now. Something's wrong. I feel like I'm having a heart attack. I don't know what's wrong. And they're like, sir, you're going to have to wait. And I said, literally, if I die here right now, it's your fault. And this lady looked at me, and she said, okay, all right, we're going to get you. We'll get you to a doctor, right?
Yeah, exactly.
They get me to the doctor, and I'm in there, and I'm crying, and my mother shows up. Now, this is the mother's love. I don't know how my mom figured out where I was.
What hotel, where you were.
Where I was at. Let me tell you something. She got there, and I'm sitting there with the doctor. They're running all these tests. I'm scared to death. And they end up running all these tests, and then a few minutes later, the doctor comes in. He says, Barry, I've got good news for you. You didn't have a heart attack. You didn't have a stroke, anything like that. I said, okay. I said, well, what's wrong? And he's like, have you been under any stress? And I was like, stress? I'm like, well, what's stress? You know what I mean? Like, what's that?
Of
right?
course.
He said, Barry, you had a massive anxiety attack.
Oh, wow.
And Jabari, basically, that entire summer, I had an anxiety attack every 3 to 5 minutes.
That's how much stress you're putting on yourself.
Now remind you, I'm trying to get in the best shape of my life to make the team.
You're just trying to ball out and work out and train.
So this is where I learned about the power of like our minds and our thoughts. I was suffering, and my mother would literally take me to Bally's Total Fitness. I would get on the treadmill for as long as I could run, get off the treadmill, have a panic attack, then get back on. Oh, wow. Then I would do it, and I would do it over and over. And I would train myself when I was having an anxiety attack to laugh, because I was training myself to think the opposite of what I was feeling, because I felt like I was dying. Yeah. And I basically found the strength to get through this to the point where I could train for 5 minutes, then I could train for 10, then I could train for 30, then I could train for 60. I would play basketball, go have an anxiety attack in the middle of the game, in the corner. I didn't want anybody to see me, then get back on the court. And I basically just fought and fought and fought. And I got to a point where I got my anxiety attacks down to maybe once a day. Then it became once every 2 or 3 days.
Yeah.
So then I show up at Norfolk State, right? Now it's August. And I got my anxiety attacks to the point where now I'm only having them every couple of days, and I know how to breathe through them. And basically, I get myself I'm in the best shape of my life. Trials come, and I make the team.
Make the team.
No one
Wow.
ever knows. No one ever knows any of what I just share
Yeah.
with you. No, I never. It was my secret. Like I never
Yeah.
shared any of that.
Yeah. Yeah. That's
So
crazy. Going
yeah,
through all of that and still trying to battle. I mean, like
it
you
was
said,
hell.
man.
It was literally
Yeah.
hell.
Yeah.
Yeah, it
Yeah.
was a living hell. I was 19 years old, you know, and it was like a living hell. You know
My
what I mean? Like
goodness.
it was it what it took for me to find that strength.
Yeah.
It was like
Yeah.
there are no words.
Clearly, when somebody comes and says, "Hey, you're dealing with some stress," but to that magnitude and that level, where were you finding that kind of solace for yourself to say, "Okay, here are the things I need to do to manage my anxiety"? Was it medicine? Was it meditation? Was it prayer? Like, what were those things that just kind of helped you, calm the triggers that would, put you in that mind space?
I learned about the power of self talk.
Yeah.
One of the books that I read that was had a huge impact on my life was "What Do You Say When You Talk to Yourself?" I learned prayer, man, like deep, deep, deep prayer, like in the middle of a crisis, like prayer. You know what I mean? Like I'm talking about hell is like burning and like surrendering like to that. Like just like I am suffering, but you're in control. And I found this strength, this muscle that has carried me through a lot of pain in that because it's kind of like I will never ever quit. Like
Yeah.
you have to kill me. Like I am it's just
Yeah.
I'm not the guy you want to run
It's-
into.
yep.
It's not I'm not that guy. Like my mind is strong, you know what I mean? Like and it's like I refuse. For me, I was desperate. That's the
Yeah.
best word I could say. There comes a point in life where, and that was kind of where I was at. I refuse to go back to where I came from,
Yeah.
and like all the suffering that I have experienced, I kind of always made this commitment to myself. It's going to stop with me. It's going to stop with me. So it was like, whatever I have to go through, I am not gonna be emotional about the suffering. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like, it's like, if I have to have a panic attack in order for me to get on this treadmill, then I'm gonna have it and then I'm gonna get on the treadmill. And it was kind of like, I refused. Like, there is no, you're not gonna stop me.
Yeah.
And it just became a me versus them thing. Like I never made it personal. So it was like, okay, anxiety, you think you have me? And so I would have the exact attacks and I would laugh. I'd be like, you're not gonna stop me. And it's just I developed that muscle over time. Eventually, I'm older now. I've gotten into yoga and all these different things, but it was just willpower
Yeah.
and
Just willpower
prayer.
at the time. Wow.
Yeah.
That's incredible. Not that we were even. I was expecting that was where this conversation was going to take us.
Yeah.
But certainly that was a huge portion of your journey, of your life. You're at Norfolk State. You're growing. You finally made the team. You hit that level, that goal that you were wanting to succeed in. Tell me a little bit about, as you're playing, that story of what you were able to do. Now you're suiting up, you're putting the jersey on, you're in practice every day. Tell me what those several years were before it was time to take the shoes off.
So again, this is the level of disappointment that I think I've had to navigate in life has built a very unique person. So I walk onto the team. Coach tells me, he says, "Look, we're not going to have you suit up for the first semester because our roster is full, but we got a guy that's transferring. And when he leaves, you're going to take his spot. So this guy transfers out. Second semester comes. I'm like, all right, coach. He's like, we're going to wait a little bit longer. That coach ends up getting fired.
Wow.
I never play a single game. And, you talk about you talk about swallowing some pills, man. You know what I mean? I never played in a single game. Never played a single game. So now at this point, I am a sophomore going into my junior year, and I don't know what I'm going to do. But by this point, I'm also getting good grades. I'm earning some scholarships. I ended up joining a fraternity. I became a Kappa. I turned a corner. And then I got a job in finance. So I ended up being able to afford to stay in school because I got a job working at Bank of America in a call center from 3:30 in the afternoon to midnight. So I went to school from 8 a.m. to 3 o'clock, and then I worked from 3:30 to midnight. And that's how I was able to afford to get through school.
Wow. And that's how you were able to stick around and do that. So was that always the goal, to step into finance, or did it just kind of find you in that space of, I have a gap here that I need to fill, and so here's how you're going to go out and manage that?
What got me into finance was survival at first. I worked for Bank of America because they were going to hire me, and the hours I could make it work. It was a 10-hour shift, and they offer commissions if I hit certain bonuses. I worked in a call center where I was servicing people's credit cards and things like that. And I'm a hustler, so I'm like, okay, well, I'll figure out how to hit these goals. And dude, I'm 19, 20 years old, making $50,000, $60,000 a year, working,
still in school,
in school, man. You know what I'm saying? I'm grinding. You know what I'm saying? Like I'm on it. So I'm like, okay, with my work ethic, don't show me an opportunity, right? I'm like, all right, let's go, right? So what happened, though, is that it's so interesting how I feel like God orders our steps, because I tripped and fell into my calling. Because what's interesting is, when I think about my childhood, I was always trying to make sense of the trauma. And the common theme was lack of resources. So in my mind, what I started to ask myself was, why did my dad fall apart? Right? Why did he deteriorate? Why was my mother angry? Why wasn't I ever able to have company? Why did I have to sleep on the floor? And it was because we didn't have money. So for me, it was like, well, how can I help people avoid the pain that I've experienced my whole life? And it was, I can advise people in this area that I wish someone would have advised my parents. And so I kind of decided that I wanted to be to other people what my parents didn't know they desperately needed. I also started to recognize in finance, I'm just as much as a financial therapist as I am a financial advisor. When you're talking about people's money, you're talking about their emotions, their feelings, their dreams. People will tell you about things that are very personal before they tell you about their money. I started taking a lot of interest in being that person that people could trust and rely on, and have these really intimate conversations with about their money. And that's kind of how I tripped and fell into the financial industry and really diving into it.
Yeah. So it really your second half essentially began a little before you were probably even thinking it was going to do that. So let's go ahead and dive into that. So you found yourself into wealth management, and you like you said, you tripped and fell into Bank of America because there was a need to fill a void of resources. And like you said, now tell me a bit about like what your day-to-day looks like in this space, because I think there are so many people, hell, including myself. I even have dysfunctional relationship with money management at times, and I'm not the only one, and I'm prideful and I can say that, but I think that there are some realities of that. So tell me a little bit about that, like what that day-to-day kind of looks like as it relates to wealth management.
Yeah, so my day to day has evolved over the years, but now I spend most of my time being the person that people rely on for retirement planning advice, for just general investment advice. That could be things like stocks, bonds, mutual funds, or we could be talking about more sophisticated things like private equity, venture capital, private real estate deals. People also will hire me to consult on tax planning purposes. A lot of the people that I've worked with over the years find themselves having, really unique financial situations. They may have multiple businesses or different sources of income. They live in high income tax states. So now they need someone that can really help them manage their liability. I've helped a lot of business owners acquire businesses, exit businesses, create compensation plans that are going to allow them to leverage that business in a way that they can really put a lot of money away for their employees, but even themselves.
Yeah.
I have helped owners get higher valuations so that when they sell that company, they get the multiple that they want and they need. On the investment side, I manage portfolios for clients. So I'm actually creating portfolios and, designing, strategies that align with a client's investment objectives or their goals.
Yeah.
There's a variety of things that I do. Sometimes people just hire me to be like an outsourced fractional CFO. So I'm doing some financial planning for them. It has really evolved from the call center to now.
Absolutely. Absolutely. It sounds like just kind of keeping up with that hustler's mentality. That's kind of what it is, but you're streamlining it to solely focus within this wealth management group. It sounds like you never lost that hustler's mentality at all.
No, not at all. Not at all. And I acquired, there's not a lot of people of color in the financial services industry. Less than 2% of financial advisors are African American. Okay. And, it was kind of like I said, I'm the guy you don't want to tell what you can't do. I made that team. No one could ever take that away from me. I didn't play a game because it was outside of my control, right? But, the way I saw the financial services industry was I'm going to make that team too. And I would go into these environments. I worked at Bank of America. Then I went to another firm and then eventually left and started my own firm. And I saw a common theme of I'm not seeing a lot of people that look like me that are extremely successful in this industry. And I'm seeing a lot of challenges in this industry for people that look like me. And so what can I do to effectuate change? How can I also connect with people from all different walks of life and be that person that they can rely on, that they can trust and provide that value? And so I took it as a personal challenge. And now I'm 15 years in. I'm coming up on my 16th year in the business. Thank you. And it's that was a journey. I mean, if you think what I just told you was a story, that 16 years is a journey and a story. But I take so much pride, and I'm so grateful that a kid that was just trying to get out of Philly and was surviving all of that has now found himself in this position. And how I find myself relating to people is that I've been in every stage of life. I know what it is to have nothing. I know what it is to have a lot, and I can connect with people on a very deep level. And it means so much to me to help people in this area, because I'll never forget being that kid that was in that living room that was just trying to figure out how he was going to get out, and and it has made me very empathetic and very human and relatable to anybody, and it's something that served me well.
That's incredible. That's incredible. Let me ask you this, because obviously you went to Norfolk State. Did you have to add any additional education, or was that kind of enough there? Or where did you even kind of educate yourself to make sure you had all the things that you needed to be successful in this space?
Yeah, so again, hustler's mentality. So
Yep.
I got my business management degree with a concentration in finance at Norfolk State, but I was also working for a bank while I was there. I got the on the job training. I was getting promoted through the wazoo. I ended up being one of the youngest personal bankers in the state of Virginia while I was still in college. And I ended up going back to school while I was still working, getting all these different licenses. I mean, I've got a lot of letters after my name and licenses.
Yeah.
And I've probably taken more tests. A guy that struggled with tests, was not confident in taking exams, and kind of was like, do I have a learning disability? Like why am I so
Yeah.
intimidated by these exams? Now I'm about to get a couple of more letters after my name, but I have spent the last 15 years studying. Like at this point, there's not too many things that I feel like I can't talk about in the area of finance in some form or fashion. So yeah, I went back to school and I got more education, more licenses, certifications, and then the experience. I got in the industry at 22 years old. So 38, I've probably had in my career, and I've averaged 20 to 25 meetings a week for 16 years almost. So that's thousands and thousands and thousands of meetings that I've had. There's
Yeah.
not too many things I haven't seen.
Yeah. Yeah. You've seen it all for sure, and of course that on the ground training. Well, let me kind of transition into this then. I mean, we sports and entertainment. What you're doing right there with Precision Planning Financial Group. Right now there's tons of money flying around. You look at the NBA, the NFL, the WNBA is now hitting a certain benchmark as well. I mean, even beyond that, you look at NIL with collegiate athletes. What are some of the things that you're seeing kind of within the sports and entertainment market and industry that young athletes should be paying attention to with their wealth management?
Yeah, so a few years back, one of the things that I achieved is I acquired a professional designation called a Sports and Entertainment Accredited Wealth Management Advisor designation. So this is something that is recognized in my industry as really you being a specialist, someone that's really received a high level of training to educate and advise people in the sports and entertainment industry. And I did that because there's a lot of things that I noticed over the years where I felt like the obvious things that as a former athlete, right? Not trusting the people that you're working with,
Yep.
being taken
Yep.
advantage of, not really understanding the legal jargon of some of these contracts and the implications that come with that, not negotiating properly from a risk management perspective, maybe not taking the right approach to how you receive your compensation, or how you take some of the capital that you have and putting it in different deals or different ventures. And today, because of the amount of money that is in circulation with NIL and all these different ways to make money through social media, etc., in my opinion, more than ever, I think the athlete, the entertainer, you need to make sure that you have the right team in place to really look at your contracts and make sure that you're negotiating properly, that you also are playing the long game, in my opinion, because sometimes what's happening is that you see this like really quick nugget and you see an opportunity, but it's not what it looks like, right? And because you see so many more overnight success kind of people appearing, I think you have to have somebody in your corner that can coach you through the pros and the cons of taking certain steps, right?
Yeah.
And I think for me, I talk a lot about behavioral finance, right? When you're a 20-year-old or a 19-year-old and you have the opportunity to have more money than you've ever seen in your life come through your hands, and then you've got the pressure that comes with maybe living in a certain environment. You've got family members, relatives, things of that nature preying on you. You don't have the knowledge to really understand how to negotiate some of these things, and then the predators are coming after you like crazy.
Yep.
You really need to have the right people in place. And so today, I would say more than anything, I coach a lot of the people I work with on listening to that EQ, right? Developing that EQ, because even if you feel like, man, I didn't go to school for this, so I don't have the IQ, I don't have the training. A lot of the guys that I find that grew up in the inner city or grew up in these environments, you like myself, found yourself in environments where that sixth sense kept you alive, right?
Absolutely.
Of, you know what? Something's not right about this guy, or this is too good to be true. And I teach a lot of the guys I talk to, tap into that more and vet people more, vet these deals more, go deeper. Take a couple of minutes here and there to cross-reference, cross-check, right? Read, here's a couple of books about how private equity works. So I know you got this money and it sounds great and you're just being sold the pie in the sky opportunity, but really look at this more thoroughly, right? This legal contract, this is what this actually means, okay? And let's go a little deeper. Taxes, right? Like, okay, I want you to truly understand, if you're playing here and you're playing there and you're playing there, or you're doing it, you got to file taxes in each state, right? Like, okay, you need to have the right people in place that have experience, that have knowledge about this, right? Before we just be a little reckless and make decisions. And the other thing, and the last thing I would say is, I would always plan for the worst and hope for the best. So my mindset is, you want to be very conservative with how you move, right? Because you never know what could happen, right? So from a risk management perspective, how can we put a foundation in place that ensures, even if the worst case scenario happens, you get hurt, the deal doesn't go the way you thought, this business opportunity that you pursued because your friend told you it was a great opportunity and he's got some people that's going to take care of it, and you off doing your thing, and then you come back and your money's gone, right? Let's hedge a bit. Let's hedge more, and then let's find ways to create sources of income by using your image, your likeness, your name, right? How can we maybe not spend that money over here and find some ways to generate income somewhere else over here and use that to support your lifestyle, right? Maybe we don't need just because you got this check, we don't need to spend all that money, because you got the IRS, you got to pay your agent, you got to pay for your infrastructure, right? So don't live off all this money. Let's live off a piece of it, and the difference we'll put it away, and we'll create buckets of money. So we won't just put it all away in something that it could go to zero, right? We want to put things away in safer places, and we want to have a strategy, and we want to manage that strategy over time. Those are the types of things that I would say are important for the athlete.
I got you. I mean, you got such an incredible story that I have to ask this of, before we definitely get out of here, is with the wealth of knowledge and your experience that you've gone through, what would be kind of that lasting, what I'll call it, I guess that lasting kind of piece that you would share, or idea that you would share with them, to just make sure that they're sitting with success for their career, or when their career is over with and they're transitioning into their second half?
So first thing I would say is, it's never too late to start over. Like, no matter what happens in your life, no matter what mistakes you make, you can always get right back up on your feet, and you can take those lessons, because there's no failures in life. There's just lessons, right? And move forward, right? So there's a group of people I'm talking to that I would just say, if you've been through anything or you've made some mistakes, just knowing you can always look back and you can get up and you can find the right people and you can take those lessons and you can really build on those. For those people who are in a stage where life is really good and things are moving and shaking, probably the best advice that I could give is, there's no amount of money in this world that will cure a soul that's not settled. And you have to find peace in your life. And when you find peace, you move very differently. You attract different types of people, and you kind of repel other kinds of people. Your interest changes, right? You don't just spend money on certain things that you don't really need to feel, this deeper need that you have, that you can never. It's like drinking salt water, right? You're never going to cure that thirst, right? You're more content, you're more balanced. You find pleasure in things that don't really cost money. It doesn't cost money to have a meaningful conversation, right? And what I find is that when you build a life that's centered around peace and really wanting to be at peace and having peaceful relationships, it's just so interesting how it's just like everything else kind of like just falls in place. And that's probably the best thing I could say. And unfortunately for some of us, we have to. I remember Mike Tyson, I think, said this: no one will ever know how much violence it took for me to be this gentle. And it's like
it's self-internal.
and it's like that's kind of like, for me, that's been my experience. It's like,
absolutely,
so much violence taught me, and it forced me to look at life differently, because it's like, what do I really want? And that's a question that I would say, if there's one thing you should always ask yourself, is, what do I really want? How do I really feel about this? What can I learn from this? Right? Why am I really doing this? And when you start to ask yourself those questions and you go a little deeper, sometimes you avoid making some really bad decisions. And it'll save you a lot of time, a lot of stress,
Sure
a lot
will.
of money.
Absolutely.
So, yeah.
No, man.
That's what I would say.
No, I really appreciate, your journey, your story of, what you dealt with growing up, both personally, through family, financially, and even how you accelerated the growth into college and where you are now, no growth management. That story in itself is one side of just, I know there's somebody else out there who is literally dealing with that same. It's not just a one of one, right? You know what I mean? Like, this is a story that I know so many people probably from Philly, from Chicago, from New York, LA, wherever they're at, and they're probably dealing with that. But your story right there is so impactful on that side of just growing up and making you the person who you are today. And then on top of it, we're seeing how you're taking those learnings, like you said, that quote from Mike Tyson, the peace you're finding, to now transition into wealth management to help others because of that lack of resources that you had growing up. So, such an incredible story in itself, an incredible journey. Super great to just have this conversation with you, because it's so powerful and much needed in respect. So, thank you for sharing
brother.
that, for sure.
Thank
Yes,
you.
sir.
I appreciate
Yes,
you
sir.
for having me. I really do. Thank you.
Yes. No, thank you. So tell me a little bit, real quick, before we get out of here. Tell me where those who may want to tap in with you, follow you, or even get some wealth management advice.
Yeah. So my firm that I founded, I now live in LA, so
Yep.
I'm based in Southern California. It's called Precision Planning Financial Group. You can look us up online. Our website is www.precisionplanningfg.com. Again, precisionplanningfg.com. Got a lot of great information on there. I'm actually about to come out with a book in the next
Nice.
couple of weeks.
Nice.
And then there's a few more that are coming out, but I think the book will really help a lot of people, depending on wherever area you are in your financial journey, navigate this kind of relationship between psychology and finance. And a lot of the things that I plan on focusing on going forward is centered around not just money management and investing and all of that other stuff, but our relationship with money, how we experience money. And it's something that I'm very passionate about.
I love it, man. Well, appreciate you being on the podcast. Thank you so much. We'll definitely be tuning in, following your journey. We'll definitely grab the book when it's available. Without anyone else, if you guys ever need to tune in, find out, be sure to hit that website. We'll definitely put it below, and we'll make sure you get connected with Barry. Thank you all. Be sure to hit that like button, hit that follow button, and we're out. Another Second Half podcast. We're out. Peace.
Thank you, brother.